Hey everybody, it's Austin Solomon, the Solomon Group. Welcome to this week's episode of The Real, which is why drawing a hard line on price point may not be as wise as you think. So for some of you, you might be thinking, Austin, are you telling us not to stick to a budget? Like that doesn't seem like something that would be, a good thing to say. No, I think it's good to stick to a budget. However, I think there's other variables that go into purchasing a house. And other variables that should be considered other than just a max dollar amount, a max price point. Common thoughts are that, well, hey, I'm going to set my price point. I don't want to go over this, which makes financial sense to draw a line and don't go above it. However, I'm going to give you guys some examples. Purpose of this podcast is to open up the thinking a little bit to where you can, consider some other variables other than just price that should be factored in when you're buying a house. Okay, so let's say that you're willing to go up to $200,000, but not a penny over. Would you be willing to go to $205,000 if you knew that the monthly payment was less? Or would you be willing to go to $205,000 if you knew that the amount of money you'd have to put into the home in the next 5 years is way less than if you buy a house at $200,000? There's so many variables, and sometimes it's a little, sometimes drawing that hard line can limit the scope of your thinking. Let me give you a couple examples and how it really plays out in real life and when I'm working with buyers. So, for example, number one thing is probably tax amount. Especially in the Wausau area, you go from municipality to municipality, and there could be between, you could be looking at a house in Wausau for $200,000 and a house in Ringgold for $200,000, and the property taxes could realistically be, $1,000 to $2,000 difference. So if you buy that house in Ringgold, the property taxes are, let's just say $1,200 less, then that's $100 a month less that you're paying, and that can be pretty significant. So even if that Ringgold house, so what does that come out to be? Even if that Ringgold house is let's say the Wausau house is $200,000, the Ringgold house is, and I'm just spitballing here, let's say the Ringgold house is $220,000 maybe. If the Ringgold house is $220,000, with those property tax differences, your monthly payment would probably be about the same. You might have to check my numbers on that because I'm just, again, spitballing there, but I think that's about right. Okay, number two, condition of the house. Let's use an example. Let's say the roof. Again, hey, I'm not going a penny over $200,000, but that house at $205,000 has a brand new roof, and the house at $200,000 needs a roof in 3 years, right? Well, let's factor that out. Let's say in the course of 5 years, right? You replace the roof in 3 years, but you divide it over the course of 5, right? It's $10,000 for a roof. Over the course of 5 years, that's $2,000 a year. So even though you're paying less, $200,000 for that house, because of that defect, or not defect necessarily, but because of the age of the roof, you might put more into that home in the course of the next 5 to 10 years, versus just paying a little bit more to get something newer, right? Again, there's no right answer there. It's just something to consider. Okay, efficiency-wise, this is another factor. So that can make a big difference into your utility usage and how much you pay per month for utilities. So for a house that has, updated windows, new furnace, efficient, features, it might not be super significant, but it might be $25 to $40 a month savings because of the energy efficiency levels. And again, that's just something to consider. So here's the conclusion. It's great to have a budget in mind, right? And I would encourage every buyer to stick to a budget. And when I'm working with a buyer, am certainly not one to push one's budget. However, a budget doesn't have to be a hard number in price that you want to go keep under. There's more to it than just the price point that we talked about today. If you think about some of the other variables, the tax amount, the condition of the property, how efficient is it in a neighborhood that's increasing in values, there's all those different variables that might that might factor into it, and maybe the price is not as important because some of the other variables outweigh paying a little bit more. So just some thoughts why drawing a hard line on price point may not be as wise as you think.